Welcome back to SCOTOMAVILLE. And this is Daniel COMMENTARIUS, the author and the curator of that trilogy of losing the fiat in your life, discovering we don't see things the way they are, and we see things the way we are, and that the greatest expedition you will ever undertake is the journey to self-understanding. For the real voyage of discovery is not seeking new lands, but in seeing with new eyes. Daniel, it's been 6 months. Where have you been? I can hear it. Well, you can see I've moved from the Airstream into a salt cave. I've had 1 million touches around the inside of this space. A lot of time to think, a lot of time to have this conversation with you. If you're familiar with the channel, you'll notice that I like to teach, to impart, to give wisdom and behind the scenes. So be on the lookout. There's a lot in store here for you. And that would include a bunch of different angles for you to see facets of the same thing. So let me build a bridge for the last 6 months so that you can understand the importance, the relevance, and the significance of INITIUM, Volume 4, and all that that entails on how it might, well, for example, have you noticed that since COVID, noise, chaos, constraints, lost opportunities, the rapidly accelerating change of the world? I mean, maybe I just turned 70 and it's a little crazy for me, but I would think so for you, and that maybe your responses have not been, well, okay, they've been more reactions.
So what are you doing?
What am I doing? I'm putting the...
This is only a test.
And reactive behavior based on old coping mechanisms, but we can deal with that. So I think who I'm speaking to is a seeker, not a spectator, not somebody who's swiping. Yeah, you'll watch this, you'll be entertained. But I mean, and not a spy, not someone who's looking under the covers to figure out what he did so we can mimic. No, not that. Not that's 3%, not the 94%, but the 3%, the seekers. Why do I do what I do? A journey with a purpose, expedition, trying to figure out why the world is the way it is. If you have that unction, that nudge, that inquisitiveness to climb a personal Everest, that's who I'm speaking to. If you'd like to gain a better insight to meaning and purpose, in other words, if you'd like to have some actual evidence in your life to help you chart a narrative arc of your own, as I did. Remember, I took 446 pages, incredibly good book, 140-something videos, the transcripts, journals for years and years, all of my life story. I uploaded that. I wanted to get my life story into a nice little thing like I began with to put on my tombstone. You know what I got? One word, 8 letters. Talking about disappointed. I was like, you, monomyth, what? I'm just talking to AI. Arnie, are you claiming I'm lying? It's like, no, Daniel. The hero's journey. I'm like, what? I'm not a hero. What are you talking about? Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey, the monomyth, the narrative arc for the reluctant underdog that... I was like, okay, prove it. Well, out of that, plus 5 months and 1 million touches, Grok and I have developed Volume 4, INITIUM. That's Latin for the beginning. So it's the beginning of what? Well, your dance with the invisible world. Let me tell you more. This is the extended version with my backstory included, because it's important to build a bridge so that you know the foundation of my experiences and why I was gifted with the creation of this. Like Bezalel in the Old Testament, given to create the tabernacle in the wilderness, this space has similar architecture. And I did it under the constraints, having to look over my shoulder, having sparse resources and a space to be completely creative, but without any guidance, a nudge, an inkling, a million touches. So, an idiom. I was born illegitimate. The Catholic Church would put me in a corner. I mean, literally, face the corner. Don't be with the rest of the kids. I couldn't speak very well. I couldn't say toque. Didn't have R's. Toque, for Thanksgiving. Yeah, I had to ride the special bus, so to speak, and learn how to speak in the beginning. And it wasn't until I was nearly 50-ish when I realized that, this is the definition of functional Asperger. Well, that's part of why I do what I do. Oh, maybe I'm a polymath because I work in multiple domains simultaneously. But I really grew up wanting to be like Spock. I wanted to work in the nuclear industry, and thank God that didn't pan out so well. What happened was I was looking for work after my stint in the Navy in Vietnam, and I couldn't get stuff in research, in the creative end of it. Fermi, Los Alamos, CERN, they weren't hiring. Rocky Flats was hiring if you wanted to come work on weaponry, but look how that's worked out lately, right? You got a target on your back if you're working in the nuke DOD industry. So I sat on a glacier in Colorado. Okay, universe, if you made all of this, come on, God, give me a clue. I'm lost. I don't want to build bombs. I want to do something creative that, honors people. I got up and skied away from that. I fell 150 feet off that cornice, a boilerplate piece of ice that on the way down I passed Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue Group. That was unanticipated. So here I am waking up in a glacier, not really quite getting that ice water on my cheeks was all I felt until I saw them lay my arm on my chest, and that wasn't a broomstick coming out through my coat. That was my arm. And yeah, you get it. Laying in a hospital paralyzed from the neck down, I remembered Gideon. He was supposed to go into battle with all of his troops, but he was kind of outnumbered. So it was like, hey, God, how about a sign? So he puts a fleece out, he wakes up, there's dew on it. Maybe that's a fluke. I don't want to risk everything on that. So I remembered that story, and I was like, okay, well, if that up there and the glacier and all this is your answer, well, okay, I'll make you a deal, as if I had any cards to play, right? And the next day, I woke up, massive pain. 5 days later, I walked home. That was an idiom. That was the beginning of my dance with the invisible world. That's when I realized that there was something much, much bigger in store, but also at stake. And so I bicycled into New England on an invitation from somebody. I spent a night at a Mennonite evangelical event, gave my life to Christ, went back, had a normal life, I thought, got married, had kids, raised a great family, and then it all ended in divorce. the internet emerged, and I decided to not do construction and high-end remodeling. I decided rather I'd get involved in the information world. It seemed a little less risky. Little did I know, right? SCOTOMAVILLE. So, 25 years in that industry. I met Angelina in the early days. We built a spectacular company. She had a TV show, a radio show, a magazine, kind of the next Oprah in the South Texas area.
And in your life, a former domestic violence survivor who overcame it. She's here to tell us how to believe and achieve. We welcome Angela Musik, founder of Momtrepreneurs, to our show. Welcome to you, Angelina.
Thank you so much. I'm so proud of you. You enunciated properly. Usually I encourage people to say, Mom's tripping on manure.
One morning, coming back from the studio, had a car accident. 2 trucks hit her, traumatic brain injury, and it was all over in a flash. I was not handling that loss very well. That was everything we had. We had millions of dollars in contracts, and everything was gone. She couldn't hold 2 sentences together. So she needed me out of her hair so she could heal. Go find yourself, Daniel. Go to Widwid. So in 2005, I bicycled across America.
On the same day, Lance Armstrong rode into Paris for the final time. A cyclist from Seattle rode into the Twin Cities for the first time. Daniel Comp is traveling cross-country on his bike to raise awareness for women in business. The longtime cyclist got the idea after his wife was injured in a bad car crash. She was an entrepreneur, and he's riding in honor of her.
Through peer support and mentoring, they all sort of network together and share their business ideas and help each other in business. And
solo trying to figure this out, and butterflies flew with me, and I talked to Glenn Douglas, Native American, and that's all part of the book and the videos and the evidence that you'll see. Well, so a second year, San Francisco and across, I decided, let's see if this is repeatable. And then a third year, San Diego and across. And by golly, William H. Murray was correct that if you corner yourself where you have no way to go back, and that the only way is to go forward, when you're fully committed to a journey with a purpose, an expedition, that's when providence moves. And so the miracles that I had saw, the guidance, the protection, the provision, all of that was repeatable when you're fully committed. So I fully committed in the information technology industry. I won 8 world records. I built 35,000 websites maybe, single-handedly.
All right.
There's some tricks.
Thanks for watching.
You have some automation. There's some cool things you can do. But point being that I earned the world records. And then in retirement, I went smack into COVID. And you can watch the channel, all of the adventures, learning that they sell you the dream, but you buy an RV. And that ended with us in Kansas just before the election, seeking God again on a mountain, if you will. What do we do? Where are we going? What do we? And then it was the monomyth, the inner cave, the whole Angelina going, we're supposed to go back to home and build a salt cave. It's like, you're going to be kidding me, God. I'm supposed to go build a salt cave? A what? Oh, a sacred space. And so that brings you up to this year. The last 6 months I've been thinking about INITIUM, the cave. My job as a sage to connect the dots for you. Why does INITIUM matter? Well, if you're in search of more meaning or to find your purpose, boy, can I promise you some interesting insights. If you'd like to increase your awareness and gain more understanding to exercise better agency. In other words, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Yeah, boy, have I got something in store for you. If you'd like to reduce the frustration, the annoyance, the lack of sleep, the irritability, the moodiness, yeah, INITIUM is really good. If you'd like to follow in the way I began, being more creative, being more expressive, following your nudge, your intuition, your unction, your creative bent. If you'd like to escape the fiat of your life commandment, to gain literacy, and to understand the nature of the human condition, to be able to move from awareness to understanding, to full exercise agency, to create a legacy, a corpus of wisdom to pass to your progeny. Oh yeah, this is really good.
So the question today is,
Follow me.
as a young person, what knucklehead thing did I do that taught me lifelong wisdom?
If you'd like to be part of a community of others on that same expedition, on a personal Everest of their own, but jointly following their nudges, their creative exploration, then an idiom will really help. Okay, I got it. What is an idiom? What is an idiom? Well, remember I said I'd give you different points of view, a look at different facets. To some, the AI self-mastery ascent framework is like a tent structure, a way of sheltering in a crazy, noisy, weather intense environment. What? Okay, let's try from a different one. Blooms. You start out at Bloom's taxonomy at the very bottom. You start with recall. And then you go up through several layers of the framework, and ultimately you end up doing this. Creativity. That's the top of Bloom's. What? Simpler, Daniel. Okay, Maslow. Maslow's hierarchy, you start out at food, shelter, clothing. You go up through a little bit of meaning and purpose. You ultimately end up chasing your self-transcendence right at the top, at the summit. What? Simpler? Oh. It's a bunch of different pieces that help you leave your fiat in the parking lot. You get away from your bad habits. You walk away from that weak, insufficient belief system that you dreamt of when you were young and naive, but when faced with the real world of challenges and snowstorms, that little piece of transportation isn't going to get you anywhere that you want to go. What? Not simple enough? It's a book, a game, an AI Sherpa. It's a very simple way to tell yourself what you think you believe and then test yourself by self-gaming. You know, get out the controller on your own noggin, Robin Williams might say. Okay. Yeah, but come on, Daniel. What is it? So this is the Salt Cave studio, right? We have all the lighting set up. We have a projector screen. We can view our own work. We have the projector up in the ceiling, and you can cut all the lights down and enjoy the ambiance and breathe in the salt therapy. But it's also a really cool little place to sit. I told you I was going to show you several facets, but I wanted you to see almost in real time the dance with the invisible world. I'm actually editing the video coming up to the scene of the what is seeing with new eyes. And into the cave comes a family. Andy, his children, his parents have just come to town from Idaho. He's a veteran. He's having salt therapy with an eye injury. I show him the scotoma. He rolls 1, 2, 5 with dice. It squalls and triggers. There's a lot to unpack in that, let me tell you. There's a lot to unpack. I've emailed. This is the dance with the invisible world. So INITIUM is a journey with a purpose. It's a guide and a tool to be able to leave the chaos that you're bombarded with, to make some sense of it, to shed off the fiat of the self-talk that's not doing you well, and to leave Nineveh for SCOTOMAVILLE. Well, okay, that means that you're going to discover that we don't see things the way they are. We see things the way we are, and that we're 100% wrong 50% of the time. But in SCOTOMAVILLE, you're also going to play a few cards that are going to help you understand the human condition. And with that, identify your why. You're going to trump off to base camp, get outfitted with a bunch of things, and head up over the Kumba icefall on Everest into the thinner air to Camp 1 and Camp 2, and all the way up across the western Coombe to Camp 3. And in that, you're going to have to acclimate. You're going to do what's called a rotation. That's a conversation where you and Sherpa go round and round. You go up, you come back down. You go up, you come back down. You do the same thing over and over again with different cards and different plays and different challenges and stories and conversations, and you can play it in your own time frame. For a night, for a day, for a weekend, a month, a year. You'll early on cross the threshold from the ordinary world into the extraordinary world. You'll start seeing patterns, and Sherpa will help point them out to you about providential footprints, things that you may not have seen about your own life and about the events and experiences that you've gained, or that you may not have insight about your superpowers over AI. It's fabulous for being available 24/7 or being able to spot patterns and stitch things together quickly. It's lousy for metaphor or paradoxes, or it substitutes its wisdom and insights with confabulation and hallucinations and artifacts, and you're going to see all of this stuff and be able to add all of that to your library and your new lexicon, your corpus that you now can apply back on your own life. Well, ultimately, you're going to go up into the really thin air, try some really hard questions, and look back at your life and answer all sorts of interesting questions that you pose to yourself, summit your personal Everest, and then face the real challenge. The descent from the summit, the coming down from the achievement you've so desired, that's where the deaths occur. Everything's upside down. It's more dangerous on the way down than it is on the way up. You're now more exhausted. You're now probably facing more constraints than ever. Or the descent is a fascinating journey, and that's where things really start coming together. With the elixir, the wisdom that you've gained, the wizardry and mastery of self, you'll be able to come back to SCOTOMAVILLE, crossing back into the ordinary world, back to the place you don't necessarily feel you fit, and do something very creative. INITIUM. It's a full circle. All the way up the Everest, all the way back down. Transforming from a reluctant underdog into a generous sage with an elixir. That's kind of what it is, but what? Explain to me. How in the world do I do all of that? How do you play an idiom? So to play an idiom, you get a book, download it as a PDF. Everything's in it. Links to the, there's QR codes and there's links to all of this stuff. And so you can follow along in the book and read little by little and take notes for yourself on your entire expedition. And you also have a game board, which is very unique. It's played in a couple of dimensions, almost like 3D space chess. It's a contour map of Everest that'll guide you and the use of the cards through the elevation changes and the rotations you'll take with Sherpa. And so you can stick it up on a wall, or you can have it in your digital device and mark it off with your cursor. That keeps track of your position. There's cards. There's special cards. There's 4 suits. It's 100 cards, 4 suits, principles, strategies, tools, and wild cards. Principles are fundamentals, things that you need to abide by in order to not die on the mountain. Strategies, ways of prioritizing things so that you don't get lost, don't go off on your own. Tools, there's ascenders and there's pitons and there's fixed line or fixed rope, and there's all kinds of cool things to get your butt around the crevasses and past the shracks and not get, blown off the summit. So you roll the dice. They're pretty unique. Any roll of the dice will only pick 1 card. See, there's a combination of those dice that only is one of the 100. And so each roll, you pick 1 specific card. And it'll be a principle, a strategy, a tool, or a wild card. And on that, in the book and on the card, is a set of questions. They're wisdom-oriented, the kind of things that you'd want to master over time. And so you personalize the question, you scan the QR code, and have a conversation with Sherpa. Now, you can use the Sherpa that I have set up as an expedition service, which is Grok, Maximal Truthfulness, or your own. You can upload all the files and have it play the game with you. But the point being that Sherpa knows the rules of the strategies, the principles, the tools, and the wild cards, and will use those to process the information that you do. The tone, the sentiment, the situation, the background, the whole of the story, the conundrum that you've got yourself in. Or the possibilities that you have for some future outcome or a creative thing. It's up to you however you want to phrase it. So you start out in base camp with simpler things and summit your way up until you get the really difficult questions about why you do what you do. And your interaction is then scored. Sentiment, tone, intent, all different ways of measuring your ascent in that conversation. And over time, through a series of rotations, you acclimate and move up and through the entire expedition. Those are scored and logged by your Sherpa or privately, locally, or done literally on a voice recorder of your own, where only you have it on a SIM card. The point of all of that is to give there's some data to be able to map, to find the narrative arc, to find the meaning and purpose, to explore the providential footprints in all of the cards that you're going to find so that you don't miss the things that are subtly hidden in plain sight. Let me close with the invitation. If you're a seeker and you'd like to utilize your time as an investment to build a corpus as a legacy, as I'm doing to train AI and Optimus, a future robot, to represent my quirkiness in long after I'm gone and to present to my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, probably on Mars and elsewhere, I'd invite you to play an idiom. And if you happen to have a location, a facility, then you might want to consider hosting it. Maybe it's a dinner for 4. Maybe it's a small group, a men's group, a youth group at your church. There's all kinds of opportunities for putting people together. And you'll find the most curious thing, and that the seekers, the explorers, will find you. Because they're already looking. They're already there. You simply need to offer as I am doing. And so as an outcome of that is a sense of community, a sense of meaning and purpose, a great value of moving from a young explorer through your sage return to the ordinary world with an elixir, as I have done. So, as Blaise Pascal would said, you can trust in providence and follow in the way I began. So I invite you to come play in idiom, the beginning.